In today's Hunt Harvest Health podcast, we are extremely fortunate to have on the show a guy I greatly admire and respect. A guy who defines what it is to be a true backcountry, public land, do-it-yourself style hunter. Brian Barney has put a ton of years into hunting deep wilderness-type places where only the most hardcore dudes ever get. He's got an incredible resume when it comes to hunting down old, mature bucks in many different Western states. I've followed Brian over the years through his articles in the Eastman's Bowhunting Journal, and I absolutely love his message on life and hunting. It's always been a message about bettering yourself in every aspect of what you do. Everything from just shooting your bow to just getting into bow range on animals in the high country. Learning and evolving with every trip taken, and with every failure, there is something to be gained. Brian's message is inspiring and extremely contagious, and I absolutely love it. So with that, Brian Barney, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing great, man. I'm so happy to get you on today, dude. I love listening to your podcast, and you're a guy I've been following for a long time, and man, I'm super stoked to get you on here today.
Well, man, right on. Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. I'm a fan of your podcast as well, and you and your wife are doing good work putting out good information on nutrition for this new age of bow hunter or new age of hunter that's out there. So, no, I'm really happy to be on.
Yeah, great. Well, hey, I know who you are, and I know most guys that are really into hunting know who you are. I mean, you've been doing a ton of writing. You've been working at this for a long time, and maybe you could just kind of let folks know that haven't run across your stuff or read any of your writing or listened to your podcast, what you are, who you are, and what it's all about.
Yeah, so I'm just an average guy. I moved to Montana after I got done with schooling, and I knew I wanted to chase my dream of hunting. I just didn't know how I was going to chase that dream of hunting. And so, I work a day job and still work a day job, but my passion has always been for hunting and mainly adventure hunting. And so what I would do is I would go on these adventure hunts, and then I would write articles, and I'd submit them to Eastman's and get published, these different adventure hunts that I'd go on. And throughout the years, I just kept researching and gaining information, started working on my fitness, my nutrition, always working on my shooting, and just always working to be a better hunter. And so I've evolved over the years. Eventually, Eastman's gave me a chance to staff write for them. So I've been writing staff articles for them. I started this podcast, Eastman's Elevated. Now we're in our 20th episode of that. Yeah, I'm adventure bow hunting all over and always trying to get better at the craft and always trying to get better at bow hunting.
Yeah, and that's why I love listening to you on your podcast. It's pretty inspiring to hear a guy that it's just always, that's kind of your message, and it always has been, is always trying to get better. I love that in life, and I love that as a hunter, hearing guys like you that have that mindset that, I hear you talk about your shooting a lot, and you're always trying to perfect it and try new things, and as well as all your training and everything else, and just everything you seem to you go into it and you're trying to learn from it. What kind of made you that way?
Boy, what did make me that way? Almost like an obsession of trying to get better. Just a humbled attitude towards things, and I think there's always room to improve in every facet of your game. And so, I just try to take a look at it and in every facet to get better at the sport that I'm in, and I try to improve that facet and try to get better at it and improve at it. I don't know what makes me that way, but it's just kind of the way I look at life and the way I look at hunting.
Yeah. Well, man, I love it. Yeah, it's pretty inspiring. I know. I'm hoping a lot of the younger guys that listen to you kind of take that same approach, and they go into, not just hunting, but in life, always looking at things and figuring out that you're not the best at it. Just try and get better. And there's ways to do things differently and get better at it and better yourself in all aspects for sure. So, well, you've done a lot. I mean, you've done a lot of backcountry. I know you mentioned adventure hunts. Now, what's your definition of an adventure hunt over just say an average hunt? What's your...
Yeah. So adventure hunts, I've always been into these adventure hunts, and an adventure hunt to me, it doesn't mean spending a pile of money or going to some different country to hunt. There's tons of adventures that are out there for the taking for us guys, that are on public lands and in the lower 48, and there's all this wild wilderness and this wild country that we can just go immerse ourselves in. And an adventure hunt to me, usually it's more than a weekend. Usually it's a week-long trip or a 10-day hunt. And it's something that I train for year round, that I'm preparing for year round. I plan all my meals. I'm planning, how to live and how I'm going to survive in the backcountry, and then how I'm going to cover country and how I'm going to find these trophy critters that I'm after. And so, I think an adventure hunt is just something that you work towards year round, and then you go on and you just immerse yourself in this wild country that the lower 48 has to offer. And you go in there and you hunt absolutely as hard as you possibly can, trying to find the critters you're after. And that, to me, when I get done, I learn so much, about myself and what I'm made of, and push myself to my limits. And it's just this avenue that I found for excitement in my life and passion in my life. And so I call them adventure hunts because I truly feel like I go, on an adventure for 7, 8, 9, 10 days, whatever the duration. But it's an absolute adventure, and I come back a changed person when I get back from them.
Man, yeah, well said. I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's something about kind of, I think you and I are similar in our approach. I think, you do a lot of public land hunting, which is really, I mean, let's be honest, one of the toughest things you can do. You're not hunting private ranches. You're not paying big bucks and hunting places where, it could be easier. You're doing it about as hard as it can be done. And that's going out there, getting away from people, doing it on public land. And man, you've come away with some just incredible trophies doing that. And I know, I think you're out there in Ennis, Montana. Man, what a great place to be, huh?
Oh man, what a great place to live and be able to raise a family here and views and the whole deal. So no, I'm super fortunate and really lucky to be in Ennis.
Absolutely, yeah. I swung down there this year. I swung through there and just kind of looked around, and boy, just a phenomenal place. And I envy you, man. You've created a life where you can live in one of the best places on the planet, and kind of right in the middle of everything. If you're a real hardcore, well, like you would say, adventure hunter. So definitely props on that, man.
Well, yeah, and next time you come through, we got to put together a hunt or a trail run or something. Yeah. I know I mentioned to you hunting when we were on the phone, last time you came through or whatever, but then you came right back and said, yeah, I'd love to go on a trail run with you. And so I've got the same respect for you, Ryan, in the hunting industry and just in life in general. You've done such a good job on these. You go on yourself on these adventure hunts and have the same attitude, and you prepare tirelessly, for these hunts and for these adventure hunts, with your diet. I love your food prep. It's one thing that I'm really impressed by, and I want to get better at, is your food prep in the backcountry.
Yeah, I've definitely, every year that goes by, I get a little more immersed in the food prep and just kind of my nutrition overall. And like you, I'm always trying to better my game. I want to go into the backcountry feeling good going in. I want to be fit, conditioned. I want to know, where my levels are and that I'm shooting good and everything's dialed in. But kind of like you, there's always room for improvement. There's new gear coming out. There's new nutritional facts that are coming out, and there's ways to make your body, feel better. I mean, let's face it, on a week-long hunt, you're just grinding yourself down up there, and maybe it's a 10-day hunt even. You put everything you've got into that hunt when you're up there. I mean, it's a no holds barred. Every ounce of strength you've got, you're trying to make it happen. And sometimes it's rarely easy that it does happen. So yeah, I mean, you just got to give everything you have. And I'm really curious talking to you about, you've been doing this for so long. Is there anything like your nutrition and your approach to keeping your body right in the backcountry? What have you done? I mean, what are you doing now that you weren't doing maybe 20 years ago?
Oh man, my nutrition has improved so much, and like you say, it's such a important piece of the puzzle, and one that I neglect a lot. I should talk about more. Nutrition, is half of your fitness or more, and it's how your body reacts, how your body feels, and if you don't feel right, I mean, you just think of a normal day. If you can flu or a cold, like how bad you feel, and that makes you really appreciate how it feels to feel good. And you don't really notice it until you're sick with something or until you don't feel right. But it's that same thing on a backcountry hunt. Like, you can't push yourself to the limits. You won't be successful. Like, if your body doesn't feel right or your body's letting go or letting you down, like, you won't to push to the end result and get it done. You can't push yourself to the limits if you don't feel good in the backcountry. And so, yeah, my backcountry, I started out making a ton of mistakes, and I still make mistakes, and I don't know everything about nutrition, but I'm always trying to learn it. I'm always trying to get better. And a part of that is taking care of my nutrition year round. And so, I come into a hunt prepared, and I think my first backcountry hunt, I didn't have to eat that much, or I didn't feel like I could bring that food. And I think I brought a Cliff Bar for breakfast, a Cliff Bar for lunch, and a Mountain House for dinner, and tried to stay in there for 10 days eating such. And my body was eating itself at the end. Like, I had no energy. My body was letting me down, and take it to, today's day and age, where I've evolved and I've better, and now I'm bringing enough calories in, and I'm bringing enough nutrition in to be able to operate and function at a high level. But it is a huge piece of my puzzle, and I think a lot of it, it's a learn as you go, but there's so much information out there, like with your guys' podcast and all the writings and everything we were told growing up with it's not the periodic table, that's Canterbury, but the table of nutrition that they used to have, or the pyramid of nutrition with all the grains down low, right? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Way back, yep.
Yeah. And it was all wrong. They were telling us all bad information on that. And they were telling us that saturated fats were bad and fats were bad, which, saturated fats are bad if they attach themselves to sugar. But throughout the years, I've just evolved my diet, and I try to cut out, and everybody's diet's different. Our genetic make is different. Our size is different. Our calorie needs, our exertion, it's got to be tailored to you, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn from everybody out there and pick up tips here and there. And I would say, the biggest piece of the puzzle for me, or the piece that I'm most impressed by and really into right now, is getting my body to a ketonic state. Do you do much with ketonic state?
I don't. I know a lot of people that are on that, and they're loving it. They're absolutely loving it. Their bodies are feeling a lot better doing it. But no, I haven't gone there. Maybe you could kind of explain how that's going for you and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm not the most disciplined one at it by any means. I mean, I burn a lot of calories, and I trail run a bunch. And so, burning all these calories, if I don't, I've got to eat quite a bit, or I'll start losing my muscle. And it's like keeping this balance that you want to have some fat on you. And I'm not talking 20% fat, but for me, I don't want to get too skinny, or I'll start looking like one of those Ethiopians, and I'll wear down my muscle, and then I won't be able to climb the mountains. And so, like I say, everybody's needs is different, but I found this ketosis, or this ketonic state, that has really helped me out in my back hunting. And what it is so carbs and sugar only last you for energy for 2 hours. It doesn't last any longer. So that's why weight gainers and professional athletes are saying eat every 2 hours. Well, eat 2 hours doesn't work on the construction site when I'm setting traps, or eating every 2 hours doesn't work in the mountains when I'm chasing a herd of elk and I've got a cat and mouse them all day. And so, eventually that 2 hours, that carb burn or that sugar burn runs out. And when that runs out, your body's got to transfer over, and then it's got to start burning your fat, and it's got to start burning fat for energy. And so, basically your body burns carbs and sugar for energy. After that 2 hours runs out, or after you don't have any more of the carbs to burn, your body's got to switch over. Now, how good your body is at switching over to a ketonic state is how good you're going to feel when it switches over. And so, I do a lot of fasting, and everybody told me to eat a big breakfast when I was a kid and eat a breakfast and I forced myself to eat breakfast. And throughout the years, I just don't like to eat breakfast in the morning. I can run with a cup of coffee and run till noon. Well, what this fast does is in that morning time for those first 4 or 5 hours, it teaches my body how to run off just fats because I have no calories in me. I've got no carbs. I've got no sugar. And so my body's got to transfer over and burn these fats for energy. And so it burns my fat for energy. Well, that teaches my body how to burn those fats for energy, as well as long trail runs. I never eat before a long trail run. I always like a fast run where I'll run before I've eaten anything or, I haven't eaten in a while, and I'll go on this long trail run. And what I'm forcing my body to do is I'm forcing my body to burn my fats and go into this ketonic state. And that it trains my body for that. And I'm in a mountains, and when you're in a mountain hunting scenario, you're going to be at a calorie deficit. You can't take in enough calories to fuel yourself through a backcountry hunt. You may be burning 5,000-6,000 calories a day. And so, you're going to have to get to this ketonic state. And it's just whether or not you trained your body for it or haven't trained your body for it. And I find with a lot of my hunting buddies that aren't good at making that transfer over, they really hit a wall after a couple hours where, I can run all day, every day, with no food, and I still have good energy because my body is good at transferring over. At least that's my gist of it. Like I say, I'm not an expert on the subject. I just pick up tidbits here, and then I really listen to my body. And when you trail run, you're pushing yourself to your limits so much and so often, you get to kind of read your body and read how your body reacts to different things. And I just found that I cut a lot of sugars out of my diet. I cut a lot of carbs out of my diet. And then I run these fasts for mornings, and I run these fasts for my long trail runs. I've really had huge benefit in the mountains with it.
Man, yeah. See, that's awesome. And I've heard that's been a huge advantage for a lot of people. Now, how often are you doing like a morning fast? Like, are you doing that every day? Is that
pretty much every day?
Pretty much every day. Yeah. Wow. So how much lighter are you able to go into the backcountry once you've gotten your body to the point where you're at that state?
I still try to fuel myself with enough calories to where, I'm not, and the key is you don't want to burn all your fats off to where then you start burning muscle off, and you don't want to, your body never forgets how to burn sugars and carbs for energy. It never forgets how. If you give it the energy, it's going to burn it off, and you're going to run at a high level. And so, I don't really run too light the backcountry, but I have half a food a day, and I try in between 2,200 calories to 2,800 calories a day, and that's kind of the sweet spot that I found where I still get good energy. I can switch over to a ketonic state throughout the day when need be, and then I can burn those other sugars and carbs for energy, and I'm still running a deficit where I may be burning 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day, but that seems to be, if I'm taking in that many calories, it seems like my body does okay over the duration of a 10-day hunt.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah, and that's where it counts. I know, like you, my diet has changed a ton over the years. I used to do it the wrong way. I used to eat, carbs and carbs only for the most part. I used to eat bagels a lot and a little bit of oatmeal in the morning and no protein and no fats whatsoever, unless I got it in a bar or something up there. And I've completely changed what I do. And like you say, everybody's different. I've found that, kind of what I do now is it keeps me going. And, when you're on a 10-day hunt, you got to have strength on day 10 because most likely you're going to be packing something out, or hopefully you will. And you got to have a little bit of muscle. You can't just be a bag of bones at the end of that hunt. And, for me, maybe it's a little bit different. I have really kind of jacked up my fat intake. I make my own bars that are just loaded down with peanut, almond butter, coconut and all this stuff. And that has worked for me, and it's helped me in my energy up there. Fat, obviously, I get a lot more out of it than just straight carbs. And I've pretty much eliminated all sugars for the most part when I'm up there, and then kind of my main meal of the day is my dinner, and that's where I'll take in probably the most calories, and it's something I enjoy at the end of the day, and that's just a really good dehydrated meal that I've made, and it's made with all good stuff. It's basically stuff that I've prepared and gotten out of my garden or processed myself, and that has changed my world since I've gone to avoiding just sugary bars and just a couple of packets of sugary oatmeal in the morning and a Mountain House. Man, I mean, I would make it work at the end of the hunt, but it sucked. It never felt good. I was always coming out way too skinny, and I'd lost a lot of strength, and I just wasn't feeling, at my best. Whereas now, completely changed. I think with the help of my wife and changing my diet and doing it that way, adding a lot more fat to it, and that's something that's only been, the last few years where I've really jacked up my fat intake, and it just seems to help me immensely. I can't describe it, but I don't come out of the mountain sore. I don't get tired, as fatigued up there. I don't, after climbing in the elevations all day long, I'm not just shaking. I just seem to have a more sustained energy throughout the day, and I attribute that to just taking in a lot more fats.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right, and that's what ketonic state is. It's burning fats, but the fats are a longer burning energy when you're taking those in. But yeah, you've taught your body to burn those fats and go into a ketonic state just by cutting your sugar and carbs out. That's all your body knows how to burn, and so it burns those fats for energy. But it'll also transfer over. When you need extra energy, it'll burn your fat for extra energy. But yeah, how impressive. Like, I'm so impressed by your backcountry diet. I love your dehydrated meals every time I see those. I think you've got that chili recipe I saw that I really like. But yeah, it's all your stuff from your garden and then wild game. I can't believe how well you do with that. And I didn't know you made your own bars, but that's super impressive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just ate about 3 of them here before the podcast, actually. I eat them all day. I don't just eat them in the backcountry. I'll make them up, every other week, and I'll just chew on them here because they're just like a great source of energy and a quick source. I don't have to make anything, and yeah, I love it. I didn't used to be this way, but I'm getting kind of anal about my food these days. I don't know what it is, but
well, as we get older, we have to take better care of ourselves. It's like we're almost forced into paying more attention to our diet, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And some guys, I think a guy like you, you're really in tune with your body. It's like an Olympic athlete. They know exactly how they feel when they eat a certain food, or they have so many calories in their diet, or when they're not doing this. You're so in tune with your body. Because I know you do a ton of training. You do a lot of running, a lot of prepping to get ready. Like you said, I think you did a run today. I mean, you're running season, off season, all year round just to be prepared. And so I think you've probably got a pretty good idea what your body does well with, and obviously what you've migrated to here is working for you.
Yeah, it's the same with you. You got your running today too. You're training year round, but yeah, no, you get to feel how your body reacts to different foods and lack of food and what food it reacts best to. And yeah, there's this whole getting in tune with your body, and especially like on those long training sessions, that's where you're really testing it, where you can really feel. You can really rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How do I feel right now? What did I eat before this? What did I eat after? How did I recover? How sore am I? How sore am I tomorrow? It's like this whole in tune with your body. But yeah, you're so right. And you're doing the same thing, which is super impressive. But I think as we get older, not that we're old, we're still young guys, but you have to evolve your diet to where you feel better throughout the day, and you feel better after you eat, and you have better energy at work and through all facets of life.
Yeah. And there's no better time than the off season right now, for example, to just kind of experiment and figure out what's going to give you going to put you in that place where you can get the most out of your body. I know, this is time for training, and why not take this time to figure out what works for you and what doesn't? Because, unfortunately, I think a lot of guys will go into a hunting season and they'll eat a certain way right up to it. And then once they go in there, they might completely change their diet when they go in. Stuff that they're just not typically used to eating. They could just be overloading on sugar. I know a lot of guys that'll still go in with just like a handful of Snicker bars and just a typical, whatever high sugary diet. And man, those guys tend to bonk so fast, and it's just a complete change in what they're taking in. And I think kind of dragging it out throughout the season and making sure that what's going to work for you and what makes you feel at your best well before the season, so what to do when you're back there, because those 10-day hunts aren't easy, man. I mean, they're brutal, and it takes everything to be right. Your diet, your fitness, your conditioning, all that. And I just kind of look at it, year to year, that I can do better and definitely change in the off season and figure out what's going to make me feel better when I really need it, which is hopefully this August and September.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think the same way that those 10-day hunts or those long duration hunts, you push yourself to the absolute limits, and you never get up there and say, well, I wish I would have trained less, or I wish I would have not worked on my diet as much. You always get up there, and no matter how hard you train, you think, I could train harder. I could figure it out better. I could figure out better foods. I could do better. And you always get done and wish you had prepared more. But right now in this off season, it is the time to improve. I mean, during hunting season, you go in with the skills you have, and you go in as prepared as you showed up. But right now in the off season is the time to make improvements. It is the time to get better. It is the time to improve your diet. And in diet, it's not just those days you're in the high country. It is a year-long improvement that you make on your diet and how you feel. So when you do go into the high country, you're hitting on all cylinders, ready to give it all you got on one of those hunts.
Oh man, yeah, exactly. And I think when you train year round, we've talked about these train to hunt events that I've taken on, and I think that what that has done for me is, that forces me to be at 100%. There's races coming up here in a few months, and I can't be slacking right now. I gotta be on my game, and it's something just a little bit closer, to hunting season. Well, it's closer in that it starts in May, and I'm not thinking, long term into August. I gotta be ready in May. And so I got to be ready now. And I'm curious, what kind of training, like what's an average day for you? And what's kind of your training throughout the year? How has it evolved?
Yeah, so like I say, everybody's different. I am really heavy on cardio and trail running, and I get a lot of my muscle endurance from my trail running. I run a lot of elevation, up and down hills, a lot of uneven terrain, and so it gets my legs such good workout. And I just always figured, like, in the mountains, it wasn't the miles that were killing me. It was the elevation, to have a 3,000 gain day or to have a 5,000 vertical feet day. Those are the days that would really get me climbing up those hills. So I started running trails, and, I started out like anybody. You run a 5K and a 10K and a half marathon, and then I started stepping up and running marathons and ultra marathons. But I didn't like the constant pounding on the pavement. My joints have always held up well, and I hold up good for marathons and ultra marathons, but I just found like I got more out of my training running trails. And so I do try to weight train. I get some weight training, from my job. I carpenter as a day job or own a construction company. And so I'm always on site, and I want to keep my build up. I don't want to be weak and frail like I was telling you before. You want lean muscle in the mountains, but you want that muscle to be conditioned for endurance. Endurance is the number one thing we can have on a tough hunt, on a tough mountain hunt, to keep pushing day after day, mile after mile, hill after hill. You want endurance. And so I really focus on endurance. And as far as fitness level, for me, like I said, I want good muscle, and good lean muscle pounds you up those hills and gets you feeling good the next day. But at the same time, I judge fitness on your VO2 max, how your body processes oxygen and brings it to your muscles. That's the bar where they test Olympics level athletes at what kind of shape you're really in. They test your VO2 max, and they test your endurance. And so that's the bar that I've always drawn, that I always love to push myself. And so I'm an endurance athlete, but I am an endurance athlete. Like I am, showing up to marathon starting line, I've got one of the bigger builds on the starting line because I like to keep as much muscle on me as I can for these. But I really, an average day or an average week for me, in the wintertime it slows down. I can do, I did an hour and 20 minutes of a run that I could usually do in 45 minutes. I probably only went 6 to 8 miles, but I did it all through snow and tough conditions in the wintertime. And so I have to work a lot harder to get my workouts in the wintertime, so I don't get nearly the miles. I get maybe 20 to 30 miles a week. As I ramp into summer, and I also try to cater my training. I mean, I'm into year-round fitness, but I really want to peak when I'm coming into these tough endurance hunts, like in that August, September. And so my fitness, my workouts really ramp up as I get into these summer months. And as I get into these summer months, I'm really trying to peak when I come in September, and peak by being in great physical shape, but also no injuries. So I want to keep my body healthy that way. But yeah, I'd say on average, I run 5 to 7 days a week on trails. And some days I only get in 3 miles. Some days I get in 10 or 12. But I run a lot, and then I mix in weight training with it as well. Like I say, I get weight training for my work, but it just isn't quite enough. I do a lot of body exercises, a lot of pull-ups, push-ups, kettlebell workouts. I do a lot of things like that, and I need to do it more and more. I mean, as I'm talking to you right now, Ryan, it's like, man, I really need to get this pushed up to more days a week. But I'd say I'm 2-3 days a week on my weight training, and I do pull-ups every single day and a few of those. But that's the bulk of my workout and fitness is my trail running. I just love it.
Yeah, man, and you're so lucky. You got, kind of like you alluded to before, it's like, marathons, going down a road or going down a straightaway is one thing. That's kind of a mind game for me. I mean, I have a hard time running roads, but man, where you are in Ennis, you've got trails everywhere. You've got some of the best trails and mountains that around. And man, I'd be hard pressed to divert to a road when I'd have those trails in my backyard for sure.
Oh man, and there, it's just almost like I don't know if spiritual is the right word, but it seems like when you're running in the mountains, I have like this connection with the mountain and the trails and the trees, and it seems like hippie, but I just feel better when I get in the mountains and I run, and I feel like I'm paying my dues to being a backcountry hunter, and I'm paying my dues to the wilderness or to the woods, but there's just, I come away, and it's therapy for me as well. I'm able to work through any problems I have in my head, that I'm able to kind of sort through, but just getting to the mountains and running those trails just makes me feel better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and it's not too hippie, dude, because let me tell you, I get the same thing. It's kind of like when you're on a hunt. Everything becomes a little more clear when you're kind of secluded, you're off on your own. And I get that on a solo hunt more than I do when I'm with somebody as a partner. And along the lines of running as well, running down a trail through the woods and by yourself, and the trails are uneven. They're more similar to what you would be doing in the backcountry as well, or just any kind of hunting scenario. It's uneven. You're always aware. Whereas, man, when you're on the road, it's just a completely different attitude. It's not the same. It's the same footsteps every time, and I don't know. It is a completely different game, and I really enjoy trail running, and definitely prefer that over just marathons or half marathons.
Yeah. So with my training, I'm super interested to hear what your training's like, Ryan. What's a typical week for you, or a typical day for you?
Well, yeah, and I really enjoy mixing it up. Like today, for example, I went out, I ran for a little over an hour, got some miles in. It was a pretty good hill. I just love running up hills, and it's usually around here. It's a logging road or an unused road or a trail or whatever, and definitely staying off any kind of pavement. And then let's see. After that, I went on a little bike ride with my daughter. Got as much as I could out of that, and then I hit the gym for about an hour today. So it was one of those days where I kind of got a few different workouts in, but really I try to get an hour every day. Now some weeks I'll miss a day or two, but I really just kind of try to mix it up. I really enjoy trail running. I don't put on a ton of miles, 5 to 10 miles, and that's about it, for me. And then I do enjoy the strength training. I like getting in the gym a little bit, and I'm fortunate to have here at my work, in my shop. It's I kind of built my own little gym, so I don't have to go and hang out with a bunch of meatheads or anything like that if I don't want to. I can kind of do it in my shop at my work, and it's a little bit of everything from battle ropes to I really have incorporated a lot of the train to hunt workouts that they've pushed, and it's really helped the conditioning. It's a lot of burpees, it's a lot of step ups and sandbags to shoulder and this and little sprints, and then pulling up and taking shots with my bow where my heart rate is elevated, and I just kind of want to see where I'm at and how long it takes my body to settle back down to where I'm comfortable taking a shot. So, now every week I'm out there and I've got a tire pull. So I'll do the tire pull and go into a sprint and then pull up, and I've got a target and I'll take a shot, and I'll see how, it just gives me a really good idea on where my heart rate needs to be when I'm going to be comfortable taking a really good shot and executing it right, and not shanking it and getting all crazy. And, it shows me, where I need to be to find true accuracy. So that's kind of what I do. It's nothing crazy. And like you said, in the summer, I really ramp it up. That's when the trails open up around here, and there's a lot more hiking involved. And I really want to kind of base my conditioning and whatnot in the summer to what I'm going to be doing in the fall. And that's hiking with weight. So I do, I'll throw 50 pounds on or 60 pounds and just hike with weight and hike uphill and hike back downhill. And that's kind of one thing that I found works the best for me. And that's just doing what I'm going to be doing in the mountains and keeping it real similar.
Yeah, for sure. Getting that weight on your back for the first time is a big one too. Yeah, I like to take a lot of scouting trips in the summertime where I do weekend bonsai trips where I pack everything I'll need, and it's a hunting scenario. You're traveling around. I travel more miles than when I'm hunting because I've only got 2 or 3 days. But yeah, getting your back ready for that backpack so you don't have a sore back when you leave on your hunt. I think that's super important too. And I really like, Ryan, how like all your training in at your home gym, everything you mentioned anyways, it's just conditioning training, your tires and battle ropes and your burpees, your high heart rate, that's all just great stuff. And that's stuff that I need to implement more in my game too. And I am getting into a little bit of it with my weight training because I don't like to just pump weights. I like to have my heart rate up. And so mixing in the burpees, and then I do a lot of ab workout for my core strength. I think that's really important. But I really like your workout routine. That sounds like a good one.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, and I'll change it up. If it starts to get stale a little bit, I'll just do different things. I'll do some workouts with my wife, and she does a lot of core exercises as well, and she's always getting these new little workouts in, and it's fun just to kind of mix things up and do that with my daughters. But like you said, core is super huge, and that's why I do like the battle ropes and hiking with weight and this and that, and I think there's a value when it comes to getting a little bit of lifting in with weight and doing that. I just seem to feel stronger in my hiking when I do, and when I lift with weight and work my legs a lot. I just don't do it a lot. I do a lot more of the hiking with weight and running and biking and this and that and conditioning. And I don't think there's anything better than being well conditioned. You could be strong as an ox. And I've taken guys into the mountains that were just incredibly strong, giant guys. my gosh, they just don't last. They don't have that conditioning, and they bonk super fast. And it's kind of sad in a way. I mean, these are guys that think they're in great shape. I mean, look at them. They look like these gods, but their conditioning isn't right. So, shoot, I've known a guy that he was an Olympic racer, bike racer, super fit guy, in his craft, which was racing bikes. But you take him to the mountain and you throw weight in his back and you have him hike up the mountain, and it's just a different set of muscles, and it doesn't translate. So that's why I really enjoy doing a lot of the hiking with weight. That's kind of what we're going to be doing in the backcountry, and that's kind of the best thing to do. If that's what we're doing, why not do it before the season comes and be ready for it?
Oh, you're so right. Yeah, no, it doesn't translate to be a backcountry hunter. That's what we're good at, is the mountains and climbing hills. And, when I get a ton of that out of my trail running, even though I don't run with weight, I can put this, I can put this huge, strain on my body in a short amount of time, because I can run 3,000 vertical feet and just have my legs on fire, because you're running it at such a pace uphill that, you're getting those legs ready for conditioning. But I think that's also important what you said, as far as diversifying your training. Like if you start getting tired of it, switching it up. But I think it's really good to be switching up your exercises all the time. And I know a huge part of my fitness is in my trail running, and I take a lot of passion in that. And I enjoy it, but like you, I'm also, all spring bear season, I'm out hiking the mountains with my pack, and I'm bike riding constantly, and just changing it up and diversifying your training to different things. The more you can surprise your muscle with different activities, the more prepared you are come the mountains when it's time to go for it. It seems like to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, exercise, it's cumulative, right? I mean, everything adds up, and it's just steps, everything from mountain biking to this and that, and it all adds up for when you need it. So definitely, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, and that weight in that pack is that great one too, because it does me no good to have my legs in such great shape, but then throw a 40 or 50-pound pack, or maybe 100 if I'm packing something out, and not have my back and my core ready to pack that weight out, and to have a sore back the next day. That doesn't do me any good. Or it just, over the years, you kind of find your shortcomings or your downfalls, to where it's like, man, I need to work on that more. I need to work on my back more, my core more. Or like you say, in those summertime months, is packing with that weight, I think, is a great one. Take that weight and hike uphill. And I don't do that enough. I get a lot on my scouting trips, and I get a lot during bear season carrying a pack, but that's something that I'm going to steal from you and use a lot more, is taking that weight and actually just hiking up and down hills to get my back and my core ready, more so than my legs, even though my legs will get a good workout too.
Oh yeah, I think that's the ultimate leg workout right there. And depending on how much you want to do, I know there's guys out there that like Cam Haynes. I mean, they'll just pack with a ton of weight. I keep it at 50 and 60. But another good thing about the Train to Hunt event is they actually have those weights up there, 80 pounds to 100 pounds. So we have to. Now that's changed this year, but we had to basically give everything we had and go as hard as you could with 80 pounds, 90 pounds on your back. And boy, once you've done a race like that, where you're going for time and you're competing against other guys, you really realize how important it is and how it can help you to train for it. Because I know my first race, man, I mean, I did okay at it. I did pretty good, but I could have done better for sure. And the next day I sure felt it. And I just hadn't trained for that particular event with that much weight. 80, 90 pounds is different. And usually that is going to be your last trip where you've got that kind of weight on there. But yeah, I really enjoy running with, 50, 60 pounds and keeping it right about there, and not breaking my body down, but, at least once a week, go for a good weighted hike.
Yeah, well, and it's not hard on your joints. It's good for your body. I think that's a good weight to train with. But you're right. I mean, that last load where we've got to come out. I mean, a mule deer with my camp, or just a mule deer. Maybe I got to go back for my camp, or who knows how many miles I'm doing. But we call on our bodies the most at the end of a hunt when we're successful to pack that buck out or that bull out. And getting your body prepared for it is just the ultimate. And I have this saying I use in the mountains whenever I'm hiking with myself or with buddies or whatever it is. Weight is the equalizer. You put weight in your pack, you cannot walk as far and you will get tired quicker. Weight is the absolute equalizer in the backcountry.
Oh man, yeah, well said for sure. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, now I'm curious. When you're on a typical hunt, and this is kind of off course, off topic, but on a typical hunt for you've done it a ton. What is, like, say you're going on a 5-day or a 10-day hunt? What's your pack weight going in? Like a typical trip like that. Where are you at?
Yeah, so I'm a minimalist. I like to go as absolute light as I can because every pound makes a difference with me. And I know if I've got a lighter pack, I can travel more miles, cover more country, move my camp more. And so weight is the absolute equalizer for me. I am a minimalist. So I go super light. So it depends if I've got to bring, how much water is really going to depend on my pack weight and what I'm going to weigh. But if I'm going in for a 10-day hunt, I'll be, and I always carry my scope and my tripod because for high country bucks at least, I've always got to see what they are before I'll go walk 2-3 miles and make a stock on them. I want to be able to know, how big that buck is and make sure he's my gold buck. And so I carry a scope and a tripod, which is, 6-7 pounds of my weight right there. But with my scope and tripod, and then usually what I do is I'll go with just a 32-ounce water bottle, and I'll usually have it planned out where I'm going to fill my water at the last pond or the last lake, or I've got a stream picked out, or I've usually got water picked out. And so I'll run right at about 42 pounds for 10 days. Sometimes I'll cut my stove out and cookable foods out and go all dry foods. Usually not for a 10-dayer, but maybe for an 8-dayer, more so for a 5-dayer, I'll cut out my stove and dry foods. But I can remember a big hunt in Nevada where I ended up 20-some miles away from my truck. I showed up at the trailhead and a bunch of guys there, and I thought, I got to cut weight. I'm going to have to do more miles than all these guys. And then if I cut my stove and cookable foods, I can get under 40 to around 39 pounds. If I'm doing a 5-dayer, I like to be under 35, like somewhere around 33 to 35, right in there. But I like to travel light, as light as I can go, because I know I can do more miles with a light pack.
Man, yeah, that's light, man. That is really light. Definitely a minimalist. Because I had heard you talk about going stoveless, and that's something that I haven't done a whole lot of. I enjoy my hot coffee and my whatever, but definitely something that I picked up from you is it's an option. I think you probably do a lot of granola and stuff like that to kind of avoid having to take, a stove to heat up water for oatmeal and this and that. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of dry foods. I use a lot of granola. I love the granola with dried berries in it and things of that nature. And then just whole foods, salami and cheese and pepperoni and all that stuff will keep. String cheese keeps for 10 days. I do bring crackers that I have with that, and I'll get some carbs from that. But yeah, I do a lot of those dry foods, and like you say, going without a stove, you are giving up some comforts, and you are giving up, being a human for a stretch of days. And it's only been a couple times on long hunts where I've given it up. But if I've got a 3 to 5-dayer, it's definitely a consideration for me to leave my stove and leave my cooking foods.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I was just running through my brain, how would that work for me? How could I get away without the stove? And it's funny because this last year I'm I don't know about you, but I'm a big coffee drinker. I just love, for some reason back there, that is just like, it just goes hand in hand with hunting for me.
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
The last year I started making a cold brew, and I would just basically keep my water bottle full at the end of the day, and I'd throw some coffee in there, some of the bags, and I just let it basically steep overnight, and then I'd the whole next day I'd have this water bottle full of cold brew, and I just add a little bit of stevia to that so it'd get a little flavor to it. And man, that is like the best caffeinated drink I've come up with on the mountain. It does not have to be heated up, so it might work, Brian. No stove just might work for me next year.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, for sure. No, I'm with you on the coffee. There's just like this psychological gain to having your coffee back in there, and I know it dehydrates you more, and I know it's not. You don't need it for performance, although the caffeine, you could argue for that in the morning time to wake you up and get you going, but it just affects my mood. And like we were talking earlier, what you do the whole entire year, why change that up when you're going hunting for 10 days and to take yourself 10 days without coffee? Well, all of a sudden, you're going to shock your body to where you're not going to feel yourself. And I just find like this psychological gain with having a cup of coffee makes me feel more human in the mountains and makes me feel more human on a tough hunt, and my mood is affected because of it. And I notice I'll have a cup of coffee and all of a sudden my mind will start racing and everything's positive, how I'm gonna find these bucks and locate them, what's the next basin I'm gonna go to, what's my game plan here, and my mind just starts working overdrive. But I get a huge psychological advantage from drinking coffee. And I know guys have told you in the past, or I've heard in the past, no, it dehydrates you more. And a lot of times I'm going without water or going on low water, but a cup of coffee makes all the difference for me in the mountains. So I'm glad to hear another hardcore hunter that likes his coffee the same as I do.
Yeah, and I've gone through all that as well. I always wanted to clean it up to where it's just perfect, right? And like you said, everybody tells me it'll dehydrate you and this and that, but I just can't get around it. I mean, a lot of what we do up there, especially when we're up there solo, you gotta have your mind right. There's something to be said about giving yourself a little bit of a creature comfort that keeps you happy and keeps your mind right to where you're looking forward to the day, and you're not depressed and you got the migraine from no caffeine and all that. And so definitely coffee is high on my list for backcountry food for sure.
Yeah, going through withdrawals up there is like the last thing you need on a hard hunt, right?
Definitely, yeah. I won't deal with that. So now, do you add any like protein powders? Are you one of those that does that to like put that in the granola or any kind of a oat or oatmeal or anything like that? Are you into powders at all?
I'm not, but I don't think it's a bad idea. I get a lot of my proteins from nuts and nut mixes that I have up and through there, but it is the one thing that I do lack on my backcountry hunts is enough protein. So I wouldn't be against it. I just, my health, I just take this weird approach where I don't use any supplements. I don't take any vitamins. I just find that I get all my nutrients from my food, and that's a better vehicle to get it through is through my food. And so, I never really got into the powders and powder drinks and extra protein for muscle. I just never got into it. But I did do a couple trips like with Lane Walter. He went with me. He's really into the hunt to fit or stuff. And then he's really into his weight training and his endurance. He keeps himself in really good shape. I ran into him. And then another guy I had on the podcast, Zach Kenner, he's really into his protein powder and uses a bunch of it. And the more I look at it, like it's not that much weight to bring in for how much you gain of protein through this protein powder. So as you ask this question and bring it up, I think it is something that I do want to implement more in my diet. And you had a couple great tips just off your question leading in, adding it to granola or adding it to my oatmeal. And I think I could do that easy enough where I'm not going to notice it or notice the taste of it, but get more protein into my system, which is going to help me recover better from a tough day of grinding in the mountains. So I think I would like to use more of it. Do you use some?
I do, and I've gone to that, for a while now, and I'll make an oatmeal in the morning. I kind of make my own. I make this stuff I call mountain mush, and it's like its own concoction of. I'll throw coconut in there, and I'll put about 3/4 to a cup of just straight oats in there, and add coconut, add peanut butter powder. I add chia seeds and all kinds of stuff, and and I'll add about a full scoop of protein powder. So I'll have those throughout the day. I'll have those kind of concoctions throughout the day, and I just feel better getting that protein in. It just seems like, I don't lose my strength. Like I'm keeping that muscle a little bit better when I've upped my game in the protein department, and it is so super easy to do. The backcountry bars that I make, they're loaded with good stuff, and I just add protein powder, and there is peanut butter in there, and there's definitely protein, but I have the more years that have gone on, just kind of up my game as far as protein, kind of in the mix for what I'm eating back there for sure. Yeah. But
man, yeah, I'm gonna take that tip from you. I'd like to start using some more of that protein powder. I think I could get a lot of benefit from it. Just mixing it in, and man, I got to pick your brain on some of your recipes for your bars. Those things sound good, whether in the mountains or not in the mountains. Just sound like a great source of fuel.
Oh man, yeah. Since I've had kids, I've changed a lot of the foods, and these kids are always wanting a snack, right? Well, it's easy to just throw something at them, out of a box or whatever. So I just kind of come up with making my own stuff, and I'll do a lot of jerky, and shoot, even my 20-month-old daughter, she loves jerky. I don't put a bunch of junk in it, and man, she just loves it, and she'll gnaw on that thing for a while. And same thing with the bars. The kids love the bars, and you can really get creative with making your own bars. And again, you can package them up and, vacuum pack them and preserve them and hold on to them that way. And it's just kind of a fun thing to do. And it just makes it a lot healthier in the long run. It's so easy to just grab something off the shelf, and something that's probably not as good for you if you're in a pinch. And so that's kind of why I do make up this stuff ahead of time and have food around here, just laying around the house all week for the kiddos and myself as well. So definitely.
Man, such good parenting, but it's so good for the mountains, like you say. And I love not getting a bar off the shelf and knowing exactly what goes into it. It's all whole foods, straight from, maybe not your garden, or maybe it is, but, just whole foods from the grocery store with nothing added to it. I just think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just kind of added to the level of, being I really like being self-sufficient and doing it myself. And, along the lines of hunting, I've kind of taken that approach, and it goes with all kinds of things. And that's kind of encompassed my diet as well. And I just like to know not just the meat, but everything else that's going into my body at this point. And why not have it be in every single piece, from snacks to breakfast to, to the meat that we put in there as well. It's all encompassing. So, yeah.
Yeah, good for you. So disciplined, your body's burning so clean all the time. That's so good for you. Kudos to you. I got to get more into making my own bars and making my own dehydrated meals. I gotta get better at that and take a couple recipes and really go into next season. And like you say, you can always get better, and I can always fuel myself better. But that's great. I'm going to take that tip from you for sure.
Yeah, and once you do it, Brian, you're going to be like, man, why wasn't I not doing this before? I could have been enjoying such good meals back in the backcountry. So you're gonna be kicking yourself, but yeah, good to hear. Well, yeah, man, I really appreciate you doing this with me today. Like I said, you're one of the guys I respect the most out there. You just got such a long track record of doing this, and got so many accomplishments up there in the hills and in the mountains, and solo hunts or having a cameraman with you. You've seen a lot, and you're really excited to kind of hear your thoughts on these topics. So, man, really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure, and same respect for you, Ryan. And I'm so happy you guys started this podcast and got it going good, and you're getting great information out there to hunters. And it's the day and age where we can all collect so much information to make ourselves better. But it's just great that you're on here on this platform and telling guys how they can improve and get better, and especially about nutrition in the backcountry. So no, thank you a bunch for having me on, Ryan. And anytime we'll have to do it again down the road.
Definitely. Yeah. Next time I'm swinging through Ennis, which I surprisingly get over there pretty frequently. I'm going to have to come by, and like we mentioned, we got to go do a trail run or something. Hopefully it's not going to be like 20 below and 50 mile per hour winds like it gets over there, but
Yep. Hopefully you time it right with a good day, but it's tough to time the wind over in this country. But no, I got a bunch of trails and canyons and things and ways to get around it. But yeah, for sure. Next time you're around, make sure you look me up and let's get out on the trails and go do a workout and talk some hunting.
Yeah, and again, Eastman's Elevated podcast, that is one of my favorites by far. Shoot, I was listening to you on some of my hunts. I always download your podcast and I'll have those with me, and I'll be able to listen to those on either a run or a workout, or you've got such good information, be it technical information or tactics and gear. It's a great podcast, man. Highly recommend it and really love it. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, Ryan. Yeah, it means a lot coming from you, from a really good self-made hunter. So, man, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Hey, take care, Brian.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Hey, folks. Thanks for listening to the Hunt Harvest Health podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Any comments, ideas, suggestions, feel free to shoot us an email at lampers@thehealthyhunter.com. That's STH. Or go to our website at huntharvesthealth.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Stealthy Hunter or at Doc Hillary. Feel free to message me as well through Instagram, as I do really enjoy answering any questions related to gear, hunting, food, or you name it. Tag your photos as well if you'd like at Hunt Harvest Health or Get Stealthy, as we'd love to see what you guys are up to. Thanks. See you next time.